why lacrosse is objectively the best sport ever created, and why Black Americans do not play it. What is sport but an imitation of or training for warfare? An effort to integrate young boys into competition, teamwork, violent physical contact, strategy, the sweet taste of victory, and the bitter one of defeat. All under the guise of a game. What is football but an imitation of the Greek phalanx warfare? Two lines pushing against each other and attempting to outflank one another. What is chess and Go but intellectual contest of strategy between two generals attempting to control territory and capture objectives on the battlefield? Just as animals play with each other through mock fighting, which seems violent to humans, humans play with each other through full-on or semi-contact sports. Sports is an initiation into warfare, designed to whet the young male's appetite for victory and bloodshed. In this regard, lacrosse is the best and most fun sport ever created.
When one considers lacrosse, they might come to the conclusion that it had been invented simultaneously across all human cultures. But in actuality, lacrosse was invented by Native Americans, primarily in the eastern United States and modern-day Canada, most notably the Iroquois. The game was sometimes known as the little brother or cousin of war, and was used to train young warriors. It was also used as a social event between villages and also to settle disputes between them as well. It seems that across the Americas, violent ball games were played, and it'd be interesting just to see how these games traveled up and down the Americas. Reason A, lacrosse is the best sport. The sport is naturally designed for the aristocracy. Mentally and in every other way, the sport is designed for a sovereign individual and critical thinker working on a team. Everyone is a quarterback, linebacker, and running back. When Native Americans designed the game, they did so in a tribal society where every man was a warrior, with some degree of wealth, clout, and authority over himself and his society. In hierarchical European societies, this level of agency is reserved for criminals or people who are above the working class. So basically you have to not care about the laws or create them. Lacrosse, like basketball, is a sport where every player has paramount power once he has the ball. Regardless of position, even the goalie can score. Therefore, ideologically, you are free from the social constraints imposed by a lower status. Every position on the field is one of agency, unbeholden to the others. There's a Latin phrase that talks about this, prima e parum. If I'm getting that right, it means first amongst equals. Of course, teamwork is required for victory, but in all, everyone leads. This is actually counter to football, where you have one agent on the field and everyone else is there to protect him. Hierarchy, status, position is built into football, whereas lacrosse is more so an egalitarian sport. Lacrosse is a sport of warriors, knights, and samurais, while football is a sport of foot soldiers and officers. Reason B, lacrosse is the best sport. Lacrosse trains young men in traditional human lessons: the lance, sword, bow, and sling. The short stick can be seen as a sword, while the defensive pole mimics a lance or spear. Lacrosse players must also string their own heads, much like one would string a bow. Passing and shooting also very much mimics using a sling. The checks and other actions in lacrosse also mimic attacks with these weapons. There is a primal affinity towards lacrosse. Lacrosse and its tools just feel like the battlefield. Your shaft is your sword and your scepter, even your wand. Coupled with the fact that one wears light armor truly makes lacrosse a regal warrior sport. Reason C, the swag, the drip, the panoply, the accoutrement. Lacrosse is a sport big on gear. If you like RPG games, you will like lacrosse. Many shafts, pads, heads, helmets, and stringing kits to customize your playing style. This love of swag is observed in many warrior cultures, from the Aztecs to the hoplites to samurai. Lacrosse will offer you the opportunity to look the best while stepping over your fallen enemy. Different shafts, different metals, strengths, different head colors, different mesh colors. You can really customize your look in lacrosse. Reason D, lacrosse is the best sport. Versatility. Lacrosse doesn't pigeonhole you and expects multivalent thinking and physical talent. Any position can score. Everyone is a leader to some degree. All players, for the most part, see action and have a chance for glory as well. Think of the social dichotomy between the quarterback and the center. Similar to the master and the slave. One does all the labor while the other does all the thinking, flexes wrist, and receives all the glory. Lastly, lacrosse is the best sport because it ends after college. Lacrosse is primarily a high school and collegiate sport, and I believe this is for cultural reasons. Private, Ivy, and elite schools are known for their lacrosse programs. Lacrosse is primarily seen as an upper middle class white sport, and those people are expected to be doctors, lawyers, bankers, scientists, and entrepreneurs. And that is what many lacrosse players become. It is as if they have the old Roman attitude that a popular gladiator, a rich gladiator, is still a gladiator, and gladiators are slaves. So it's an understanding that in these cultures, being a football player is something. Like being Tom Brady is something, but being a CEO of a company, or even being a doctor or a head of a law firm, might be more respectable. So, why don't black people play lacrosse? A game that combines all the good aspects of basketball and football. Reason A, the stigma of it being a white sport. Like the lower caste in Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, black people have been made to hate and abhor certain positive and good things in order for them to be happy with their place in society and not seek that which is outside of it. An example of this would be using proper English and speaking like a white person, and being made fun of for speaking like a white person. A culture of self-sabotage. A culture and lifestyle that glorifies things that are detrimental to the self. An example of this was in the days of Gucci Mane and Lil Wayne, where stupid was a term used to describe something as cool. Like, oh man, that's stupid, or that's Gucci, or that's stupid cool. The examples of this are countless, but you look at rap, you look at black culture. Black culture is mainly something used to brainwash kids into thinking degeneracy and criminality is something cool. You look at Cardi B, you look at the Migos, you look at gangster rap, a glorification of self-destruction. And also, very, very important, when you as a black person deviate away from that culture of self-destruction, your own people, your own kind, might hate you for it. They might say you're acting white, you're acting this. Meanwhile, you're not accepted by white people either. So there's a chance that when you go to play lacrosse, you might be made fun of for it by other black people. And lacrosse is a great sport, but for some reason there's a stigma in playing it if you're a black person. It's just like there's a stigma in studying and not chasing women, and there's a stigma for not acting like a Nigga or Nigger. Reason B, black people don't play lacrosse. Lacrosse is white people's last bastion in sports, amongst things like hockey, lacrosse, golf, So I wouldn't say it's their last bastion, but it's something that they solidly hold. Tennis. So it is a contact sport for the white and not poor. I do not believe the people behind lacrosse want it to be democratized. Lacrosse is still white and they don't want that to change. The fact that there's no money in lacrosse and it is largely privately funded, meaning there's money in lacrosse, but I don't believe college programs and I don't believe there's big money in lacrosse. Lacrosse is mostly played for the fun of it, for the love of the sport. Colleges and high schools aren't making huge money off lacrosse. So the fact that there's no money in it and it is largely privately funded means the sport is still played for the pageantry and the culture and the prestige and the excitement of the game. Black people and other minorities largely lack the funds needed to field a team. And I wonder that if sponsors and other entities came in and funded lacrosse, the sport or the game wouldn't change according to the agendas of the people funding the sport. Reason C, the cost to entry. Since the days of the pharaohs, a man's wealth dictated how well armed he was on the battlefield. The kings and nobles usually having the most splendid and protective armors, while the common man was lucky if he had layers of leather. Lacrosse is seldom funded by high schools, and a full kit of stick and pads can cost between $500 and $1,000. It is the responsibility of one's own family to suit and field their son or daughter with the proper armor and weapon. Very similar to a warrior society. Warriors have to come up with their own weapons. Soldiers get supplied. Black people en masse simply don't have the funds to have their children play lacrosse. In a country where people are living paycheck to paycheck, asking for $1,000 to get properly suited, between $500 and $1,000 from your parent to get properly suited, plus pay any fees that go with playing the sport. That's a lot of money. And there's not even a chance that this could lead to some multi-million-dollar contract in adulthood. It seems like an investment with no return. Reason D, there are no big lacrosse leagues. There is the PLL, which is a professional lacrosse league, but it's nowhere near where the NFL, MLB, or even the professional hockey leagues are. So this eliminates lacrosse being a lottery ticket out of poor circumstances. Lacrosse could be a lottery ticket to an elite school and a professional degree, but as stated in Reason A, this is not the thinking nor value system of black people. Reason E, it takes years to develop the skills required to play lacrosse. These skills are usually passed down from father to son or brother to brother. The general lack of fraternity and fatherhood in the black community makes this impossible. Like a young Spartan, samurai, or knight, hours of practice and loads of paternal investment go into making a successful lacrosse player. Many successful athletes had a father who invested in them. So, to add on to that, many lacrosse players begin playing lacrosse very young, 6, 7, 8, and they play year-round, maybe even indoor lacrosse, up until high school. So when you get into high school and college and you see these players who lacrosse is like riding a bike to them, they've been playing since they were 6 years old, and it's usually their father or their older brother who got them into the sport. When you don't have that fraternity or fatherhood, that passing down of skills in the black community, there's no one who gets you into lacrosse at that young age. and there not being an already established culture of playing lacrosse in the black community, when you do have a father, he's probably going to push you towards basketball or football, the traditional black sports. So connected with fatherhood and fraternity is a passing down of tradition. So when you don't already have a tradition of playing lacrosse in the black community and you don't have fatherhood or fraternity, where does lacrosse even get injected? Who's there giving the 6-year-old, the 7-year-old kid a lacrosse stick to play with? Reason F. Lacrosse is in fact racist. It is difficult being the only black guy on the team. It is difficult getting friends to practice with. The lack of fraternity means assembling a team or a group to practice with is difficult in the black community. This is something I dealt with personally because lacrosse is a team sport. You need people to practice with, you need people to play against, you need people to go one-on-one against, when you're not playing, when you're not at school, when you're not practicing. You need, iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel. So when you want to be the only black kid on the lacrosse team, you have to be a bro. You kind of have to be a token black guy, or else, no one will hang out with you and play with you and practice with you. So if you're not already a token black guy, if you're not already a lax bro, if you don't already speak the lingo and, have a white girlfriend and all that stuff, and to be honest, growing up, I wasn't too far off from that because I grew up in a white community. I just wasn't like a token ass kisser of white guys. It's hard to play. It's hard to, sharpen your skills and practice. It's difficult. And also dealing just with the racism in the locker room, people thinking you can't play lacrosse because you're black or something like that, or you don't have the intelligence to play lacrosse, because as mentioned, everyone's a linebacker, quarterback, and running back. You got to be able to make decisions, on the fly. But yeah, lacrosse is racist. So a lot of black people don't want to play lacrosse because they don't want to be the only black kid on a team full of racist white kids. And that's just that. So just to wrap up why black people don't play lacrosse and why lacrosse is the best sport. So lacrosse is designed for critical thinkers, sovereign individuals, people who can really lead themselves. Lacrosse is also the best sport because it trains men in things that are natural to us, in things that our ancestors did: the sword, the bow, the lance. When you play lacrosse, you really feel like you're on a battlefield. The swag, the drip, you get to look good while you play. The versatility. Lacrosse doesn't pigeonhole you and expects multivalent thinking and physical talent out of every position. So you're not going to end up being a center and just snapping a ball and getting hit in the face your whole career. Lacrosse is a sport that allows you to progress as an individual. So you're not going to be a 40-year-old man, a 30-year-old man playing a ball game. It'd be very nice to have a professional lacrosse league where you could get paid millions of dollars to play lacrosse, but that's also not real. You know what I'm saying? Like, professional athletes should not be getting paid more or more glorified than doctors and military generals. Like, if you ask any American, including myself, who are the top military generals in the United States Armed Forces right now, I couldn't, or in the past 50 years, going back to World War II, I could not, and most Americans could not name you the top military generals in our armed services. I know General Patton, General George Patton, General Eisenhower, General George Sherman. I know Robert E. Lee. I know Ulysses S. Grant. And I know maybe a General McChrysty or something. General McChrysty from the Iraq War.
So yes, it'd be very nice to have a professional league where people got played millions of dollars to play lacrosse, but lacrosse doesn't feed into that and expects athletes to develop into something that surpasses someone who uses their physicality. So recapping the reasons black people don't play lacrosse. There's a stigma against black people playing lacrosse in this nation, amongst blacks and amongst whites. Meaning, if you try to play lacrosse, there's a chance that your white teammates and your white friends won't accept you, and there's a chance that your black friends might castigate you, might ostracize you, might make fun of you for playing the sport of lacrosse. Oh, you want to hit people with sticks, stick balls, like all these things that really, when you dissect the insults, they don't even make sense. So the next reason, lacrosse is one of white people's last bastions in sport. Black people coming into the NFL and coming into the NBA in some ways had to emasculate the masculinity of white men, knowing that all the best athletes in our society are these giant black guys with, and the obsession with the black manhood, because I was going to say giant black guys with giant, whatevers, because there's a huge myth, and I haven't measured all the penises in the world, but there's a huge myth amongst white men that all black men have giant penises and all white women want them. And I know there's some truth to that, because white people seem to be sexually obsessed with black people, but that's not what this video is about. But lacrosse is white people's last bastion, one of white people's last bastion. There's hockey, there's lacrosse, there's golf, there's tennis. Even though we have Jim Brown, we have Tiger Woods, and we have Serena Williams, we just don't have a famous black hockey player. White people would like keeping lacrosse white. The next reason, the cost of entry. It's expensive to play lacrosse, and black people are largely socioeconomic underdogs. I don't want to just say poor, but there are no big leagues, so lacrosse can't be used as a lottery ticket out of the hood and as a way to make multi-million dollars without going to school. And that's funny that black people depend more on rapping, and black people in the popular culture depend more on rapping and playing sports to get out of the hood than their own brain, possibly because public schools in black society are so poor that from a young age they know that with the education they have, they're not going anywhere. Just a possibility, a thought. It takes years to become a really good lacrosse player. Most lacrosse players start playing lacrosse when they're 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old. So by the time high school comes around, lacrosse is a secondhand skill. It's like riding a bike. You don't see black kids being indoctrinated into lacrosse at a young age, largely because they don't have fathers or older brothers who play lacrosse, because of cultural and socioeconomic reasons. So black people also don't play lacrosse or don't get into lacrosse because they have been initiated into lacrosse at a young age. And lacrosse is in fact a racist sport. So in conclusion, we must go back to the beginning. Lacrosse is a sport a community uses to train its young men in the art of war. How can black people play lacrosse if they don't have a community or a fraternity? A group of young men from families of wealth who have grown up with each other and befriended one another. They go to the same churches, they go to the same schools, and they party together. Black people don't play lacrosse because they don't have the prerequisites to play lacrosse: wealth, community, and a correct culture.